A young witch followed her beloved first love to the royal palace, but on the way, her first love was brutally killed. Even stranger, moments later, two men who looked exactly like him appeared before her. All of this began because of an evil dragon named Gangjol. Rumor had it that Gangjol had completed 1,000 years of cultivation and was ready to ascend and become a divine being. But on the night of ascension, a human accidentally witnessed him. Once a dragon is seen, it becomes tainted with misfortune, its body turning into a pitch-black five-horned red dragon, and all of its 1,000 years of cultivation will collapse. To ascend again, Gangjol set his eyes on Ruri, the descendant of the witch. Ruri possessed extraordinary abilities and a pure soul capable of cleansing the impurity humans left on the dragon. If Gangjol possessed Ruri and made him serve as his vessel, he could ascend again. So, Gangjol found the young Ruri. He persuaded her to discard the ghost-repelling stone and obey him as her spiritual master. The stone was a sacred tool passed down from Ruri's grandmother, a powerful charm that repelled demons and monsters, preventing Gangjol from getting close. The young Ruri looked at him with stubborn eyes and refused to drop the stone. Her grandmother had already warned him. Gangjol hated humans deeply, and wherever he stayed, no life could survive. What's more, Ruri's grandmother had just passed away while performing a ritual, an accident that took her life. Villagers blamed Ruri, saying her existence attracted Gangjol and brought disaster upon the village. Because of this, Ruri resented Gangjol even more. She would never serve such an evil dragon. 13 years passed. Ruri grew into a smart and beautiful young woman. However, she refused to inherit the destiny of a witch. Instead, she hid her identity and lived quietly as a talented spectacles maker, well known in the nearby villages. One day, Ruri visited a noble household to deliver a pair of fine spectacles. But something else caught her attention, a strange, unclean aura surrounding the house. Upon asking, she learned that the Lord's daughter, the young lady of the house, had fallen gravely ill. Ruri didn't want to expose her witchcraft, but before leaving, she saw a one-horned ghost full of deep resentment sitting on the roof. She immediately knew this was the cause of the young lady's illness. Hearing that the young lady was coughing blood, Ruri felt uneasy and returned. She arrived just as the ghost was about to harm the girl. Ruri used a peachwood branch to subdue the ghost, then tried to persuade it with compassion. She understood the ghost had grievances and wanted revenge on the family, but warned it that if it continued harming people, it would become a lost soul forever. Moved, the ghost reached toward Ruri, but suddenly spiritual turbulence erupted. The ghost forcibly possessed the young lady and fled the estate, threatening to die together. In the marketplace, Ruri found the girl and attempted to drive out the ghost using the ghost-repelling stone. After a fierce spiritual battle, the ghost was forced out, but in hatred attempted to kill Ruri. Ruri struggled to pick up the fallen stone and suddenly saw Gangjol nearby, watching with glee. He mocked her, saying she could survive only if she begged him. But Ruri ignored him, defeated the ghost, and retrieved the stone. Gangjol persisted, following her endlessly and urging her to become his ascension vessel. Ruri grew annoyed. She already suspected Gangjol had secretly empowered the one-horned ghost, hoping it would help him destroy the stone and take over Ruri's body. Gangjol admitted it and ordered her to stop resisting. But Ruri refused. Gangjol's actions doomed the ghost, increasing its suffering. She despised him even more for ignoring justice and humanity.
A few days later, in the marketplace, Ruri argued with a horn seller. The seller thought she brought bad luck and refused to sell at the original price. Ruri, unwilling to back down, pretended she could summon evil spirits. Terrified, the seller sold it to her cheaply. A man, watching her stubborn attitude, suddenly laughed. Ruri turned and froze. It was her childhood first love, Unap. Back then, no one wanted to play with Ruri except Unap. She remembered how he once climbed a tree to pick the best persimmons for her. But she had also seen Gangjil nearby, staring like a haunting shadow. Because of Gangjil's interference, Unap fell off the tree and injured his leg. Fortunately, he had fully recovered. He now worked in the royal palace, proofreading books, a modest but respectable position. He expressed regret that Ruri didn't inherit her grandmother's witchcraft. Coincidentally, Unap knew the noble family Ruri had visited earlier. He had heard from their daughter that Ruri was the famous spectacles maker. He now wanted Ruri to make spectacles, not for himself, but for the king. He trusted her craftsmanship and asked her to travel with him to Hanyang and enter the palace. Gangjil, who had been following them, shouted loudly in protest. He didn't want Ruri to go to that cursed place. Unap couldn't see the dragon, so Gangjil rambled freely, listing all the terrible things about Hanyang. Ruri grew impatient and joked to Unap that a dog nearby was barking. Gangjil wouldn't stop. He even spoke badly about Unap, claiming he was deceiving Ruri. Unable to bear it, Ruri dismissed Unap temporarily and confronted Gangjil. Gangjil refused to explain clearly. He only said that Unap insisted on bringing Ruri to the palace, not because she was a spectacles maker. Ruri didn't believe him. The Unap she remembered would never deceive her. For Ruri, the real reason she wanted to enter the palace was Unap. That night, Ruri saw a vision of the future, she and Unap standing together as husband and wife. This strengthened her resolve to go with him. On the day of departure, Ruri and Unap traveled through a forested mountain path. But no matter how they walked, they couldn't leave the forest. Unap grew suspicious, thinking someone deliberately prevented them from reaching the palace. Ruri comforted him, but she already knew who was behind it, Gangjil again. She found a chance to slip away and shouted angrily for the dragon to reveal himself. Gangjil lay lazily on a tree, unfazed. He fully intended to trap Ruri and Unap in the mountain. But in truth, Gangjil wasn't simply being mischievous. Unap had another motive for bringing her to the palace. Recently, the young prince had been possessed by an evil spirit, committing violent, bloodthirsty acts. The Dowager Queen had learned of this, but had no solution. Thus, the king ordered Unap to seek help from former court officials. While visiting one minister's home, Unap discovered Ruri and decided to bring her to the palace to cure the prince using her witchcraft. At that moment, a group of men suddenly appeared, holding Unap to knife point and demanding he reveal why he met the minister. Unap refused to betray the king and was stabbed to death. Gangjil, hidden in the trees, witnessed everything. To save himself and regain a living body, Gangjil possessed Unap's corpse. Ruri returned shortly after, only to see two identical Unaps walk out one after another. She quickly realized that the one holding the sword was possessed by Gangjil. Gangjil approached Ruri and knocked the ghost-repelling stone from her hand. Ruri mistakenly thought Unap had been murdered by Gangjil. The real Unap's spirit howled angrily, demanding to know who Gangjil was. Gangjil ignored him and threatened Ruri, ordering her to serve him sincerely from now on. But to his shock, he suddenly found himself unable to separate from Unap's body. Ruri seized the chance to break free and tried to retrieve the stone stuck in a tree branch. But Gangjil moved faster and kicked the stone off a cliff. Enraged, Ruri fought with him, and unexpectedly, the two of them fell off the cliff together. When Ruri regained consciousness, she found herself already inside the palace. They had been rescued by the king's guards. The royal physician informed the king that Ruri's arrow wound was severe and might not heal. When Ruri heard that Unap had also been wounded by an arrow, she realized his death wasn't Gangjel's doing. The king ordered that Unap must be saved at all costs, and the mastermind behind the assassination must be found. The assassin, an official from the Ministry of War, learned that Unap had somehow come back to life. Refusing to believe it, he sent his men to kill Unap before he fully awakened. A killer infiltrated the palace to murder the sleeping Unap. Unexpectedly, Gangjel suddenly awakened, kicked the assassin away, and blocked an arrow with just one finger. The noise alerted the palace maids, forcing the assassin to flee. The royal physician was shocked at how quickly Unap had awakened. Meanwhile, Gangjel struggled to adapt to the human body, scratching at his wounds and groaning from hunger. A maid brought him porridge, and after just one taste, Gangjel felt an indescribable pleasure. He never knew humans could enjoy such wonderful flavors. Under the moonlight, he shoveled the porridge into his mouth with childlike delight. The physician and staff were stunned. Unap suddenly seemed like a completely different person. After careful observation, the physician concluded that Unap must be suffering from amnesia. After finishing the delicious porridge, Gangjel grew upset. For thousands of years, nothing he ate had ever tasted like anything, yet humans, mere mortals, could enjoy such incredible food. As he complained, Gangjel heard a ghostly wail echoing through the palace. Ruri heard it too. The voice kept calling her name, just like Unap's spirit. Following the sound, Ruri found a well in the rear courtyard. She approached, thinking she could save Unap, but instead saw a water ghost inside. The water ghost grabbed her and dragged her into the well. Ruri struggled desperately, but without the well demon stone, she was powerless. Just as her life hung by a thread, Gangjel appeared and caught her. The water ghost cast a spell, wrapping Gangjel in his long hair, but he countered with his own magic, driving it away and saving Ruri. Strangely, perhaps because of his new human eyes, Gangjel began to be drawn to Ruri. He began to think she was beautiful. Ruri coughed up water, still worrying about Unap's wandering spirit. She believed the water ghost used Unap's voice for a reason. Perhaps his soul was still inside the palace. To find Unap's spirit, Ruri wanted to confront the water ghost again, but Gangjel forbade it. Without the well demon stone, she was just a fragile human, no match for ghosts. As they argued, the ghostly cry sounded again. Gangjel sensed danger and tried to pull Ruri away, but the strain of the human body caused him to faint. The next day, Ruri was summoned to the throne hall to fit the king with new eyeglasses. However, the king already had a pair crafted by master artisans. The king said he didn't need new glasses. Ruri was startled, but she had to remain in the palace to question the water ghost about Unap's fate. With no other choice, Ruri pitched new sunglasses to the king and secured permission to stay. She was assigned temporary lodging in the medical bureau.
But doubts filled her mind. If the king didn't need new glasses, why had Unap lied to bring her here? Wandering the palace, Ruri encountered the queen and noticed the stench of an evil spirit surrounding her. The queen learned Ruri was the optician Unap recommended and seemed to realize something. She did not punish Ruri for trespassing. Ruri learned the well where the water ghost appeared was behind the queen's residence. Upon leaving, she overheard maids gossiping that Unap had been acting insane, jumping around, crawling into boiling pots, completely uncontrollable. They weren't wrong. At that moment, Gangjel stood on the medical roof wondering which direction he should jump. Ruri arrived and found Unap's mother speaking with her niece. The niece said Unap had run off barefoot after hearing there was endless gourmet food at a brothel, and his colleagues dragged him there.
Inside the brothel, Gangjul devoured dishes like no one else existed. The flavors were heavenly. He was lost in bliss. His friends, unable to pay, tried to sneak out, but Ungap's mother and Ruri arrived. His mother grabbed her son by the ear and dragged him out. Gangjul, unaware of who she was, tried to cast a spell on her, but she hugged him tightly, terrified he'd cause more trouble. Believing he truly was her son, she took him home. Ruri spoke with her. She remembered Ruri's grandmother's divination that Ungap would not live past 30. Now, having survived a great disaster, she believed Ruri, a shaman's descendant, had saved her son's life. Ruri couldn't reveal the truth that Ungap was already dead. Instead, she quietly set up an offering table and prayed for his spirit, lost in memories of their childhood. As children, Ruri was shunned as a curse, and only Ungap defended her. Young Ungap believed the village's misfortunes were not caused by Gangjul, and the villagers had no right to blame Ruri. He even invited Ruri to go to Hanyang with him one day. All these years, Ungap's affection for Ruri never changed. Ruri expected Ungap's soul to return to his mother, but clearly that wasn't the case. Gangjul appeared and bluntly told Ruri that Ungap had already crossed the river of 3 roads, the path of no return. He urged her to stop wasting time and stay with him instead. But Ruri refused. She already suspected that Gangjul was trapped inside Ungap. His strange behavior made sense now. He wanted to escape the human body. Ruri touched Gangjul's chest, not because it was Gangjul, but because Ungap's warm body was still there. Gangjul understood her intention. Ruri wanted to retrieve Ungap's soul and return it to his body. Ruri admitted it. The face he cherished, the body he loved, was right before him, but the soul inside belonged to someone else. How could he accept that? Hearing Ruri confess her deep love shattered Gangjul's heart. 13 years ago, when he first met Ruri, he had admired her purity and sincerity. One day, palace officials arrived to take Ungap back to the palace by the king's decree. Seeing Gangjul still asleep, Ruri yanked off his blanket, scolding him for abusing Ungap's body. From Gangjul's words, Ruri sensed something strange. Gangjul already knew why Ungap had brought her into the palace. Gangjul refused to explain, so Ruri vowed to uncover the truth herself. Worried for Ruri's safety, Gangjul retracted his serpent tongue, dressed in official attire, and returned to the palace. Ruri went back to the medical bureau, slipped away, and headed to the rear courtyard to meet the water ghost. She tied a rope to himself, chanted a spell, and began the ritual. The bamboo ladle retrieved the dishes she had thrown into the well earlier. As the plates opened, the water ghost appeared. Ruri asked where Ungap's soul was. The water ghost warned that Ruri would die if she saw Ungap. Ungap had already been devoured by the 8-foot ghost. Meanwhile, the Queen Mother sought a blind shaman to perform a ritual. Her young son, the prince, writhed in agony on his bed. The shaman declared the entity possessing him was the 8-foot ghost. End of episode. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel. I will be back with the rest of the story soon.